Bidenomics. It was this print and spend sort of mentality. Print the money, spend the money. Spend in government, spend in business, just spend everywhere, and that'll make the economy better. And it's very fake. It's sort of juicing the economy forward. That was Bidenomics. It was a dismal failure. It did have an inflationary effect, which, by the way, a lot of people said that it would. Trumpenomics is substantially different from that because it's about allowing businesses to do what they do best in a better environment for themselves and hopefully for their workers as well. So if you could contrast Trumpenomics with Bidenomics for us.
Right. I mean, the Biden approach is basically demand side, focus on weak demand, what's known as Keynesianism, and you basically have the government spend money to get demand up. But demand has been strong, and this is the problem with the past 4 years, in large part from an economic perspective, is that we've left with the highest deficit to GDP in an environment of full employment we've ever had, with record high debt. And that is a reflection of the fact that the government spent way too much money to stimulate an economy that didn't need stimulus, and therefore you got a 40-year high in inflation. Demand is not the problem right now. What the problem has been trying to get businesses to invest in their communities, to invest in their businesses, and then to hire and lift wages. And that, as a builder, is what President Trump understands, that you need to create things. So it's not demand-driven, but rather supply-driven. How can we increase the economy's potential capacity? How can we increase its ability to produce more of the goods and services that people and firms want at a low cost? That was what the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was designed to do. And that is what the one big, beautiful bill that was passed in record time is set to accomplish, which is let business operate in a way that's productive, that's constructive, that the shackles of government regulation and high tax rates aren't going to impede that progress, because if businesses do well, the economy does well, people do well, their paychecks grow. As Secretary Besson has said, economic security is national security. It's all connected. It is fundamentally different. The results of the first Trump term were excellent. That's why people put President Trump back in office, because they loved the results that he had in terms of lifting middle and lower class wages. As I mentioned earlier, real household incomes boomed, and it's supply driven. You focus on producing things that people want. It's not just giving money out or spending money to try to create demand, because what you wind up getting, as we saw, is inflation.
And so you're looking at this, and I'll just, I'll zoom out a little bit here in the sense of saying, look, we're out of the weeds, and we're talking about what does this mean to say I have a family of 4, and, we live in the mid-Atlantic, and it's summertime, and we're looking at things as they go. And what we're looking at and seeing is that gas seems to, the gas prices seem to be lower than they were a year ago this time. Prices in general certainly seem to have stabilized or come down in some places as well. Something, by the way, I'm seeing just anecdotally, but I've noticed it out there, is that people seem to be, you tend to see a bit more middle-class Americans taking more summer trips to Europe. And that is not something that you're going to be seeing if more people are worried about economics. I'm not saying that economics aren't an issue or anything like that, but you are starting to see these huge signs of comeback from the Biden economy that we can absolutely track, and they are tangible metrics. So I'm seeing this more and more often, and I hear people making more trips like this, and I think you're going to see more and more people sort of getting back to where they were, quite honestly, kind of at pre-pandemic level.
For sure. I mean, two of the signature issues which President Trump has delivered on that people voted him in office for is, one, getting the cost of living down, which he has. So you're seeing energy prices fall rapidly. This past Memorial Day, gas prices were at the lowest level in 4 years. You're not seeing food prices accelerate as they were under President Biden. You're seeing rents come down. So like people's cost of shelter and their eating, the ability to feed themselves and be able to move from place to place, those costs, the everyman or every person inflation rate has come down quite significantly. That is really positive news. And the other issue, of course, as you know, is the immigration side. And now that there's going to be much less illegal immigration, Wages are not going to be set artificially low. So if you get lower prices, which is the Trumpenomics supply side boom like we had in the first term, combined with the market seeking a natural rate, not an artificial depressed wage rate, you get faster nominal wages. That is real wage growth. That is the blue collar boom we're seeing. And we like to see that continue and perpetuate and strengthen. And that will lift everybody's. That the rising tide lifts all boats. That's a wonderful story for U.S. households.